Hi, welcome to this edition of Facebook Live with Richard Cole, the founder of Cole's Wild Bird Seed. Well, it's our wild bird products. It's great to have you back, Richard.
It's good to be here again.
Yeah, we've done some tape segments,
Yes.
but now Richard is here live, ready to answer all your birding questions. So let's talk about some of the things we're going to cover today. We're going to show you the calendar pictures. Everybody participated in the photo contest to be able to get their pictures into our calendar. So you're going to see those today, right?
Pictures too. Yes.
Yeah, beautiful
Yes.
pictures. So we're going to take a look at those. You're not going to know which month each picture is going to be in, but you are going to be able to take a look at each one of those beautiful pictures. And what else do you have for us today?
We're going to mention hummingbirds because we get so many questions this time of year. I had tons of hummingbirds last year. I don't have as many this year. What's going on? It's just not time yet.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk about that. We're going to also talk about what you should be feeding the hummingbirds, what not to put in the hummingbird nectar. And we'll probably talk a little bit about bird migration in general.
Right. And about nesting and what to feed, right?
And some birds are still nesting. A lot of them are not nesting now. We'll talk about which ones.
Yeah, we'll talk a little bit about migration. So all those topics are coming up. But without further ado, we want to show you the pictures of the calendar that will be in our new Cole's calendar this year. And thank you so much for participating. So let's take a look at those. This I love. What do you think about this picture,
Yeah,
Richard?
I like that too. It's such an inquisitive look.
I
Little
love
head turned to the
that.
side,
Yeah.
like what's going on?
So this one is by Jessica Kemper, and that is just beautiful. It seems like goldfinches always do well in these contests.
Yeah. Well, they're pretty birds.
Yeah, they are beautiful, and I love that expression. So this one I really love. Look at all the color. You just can't beat cardinals in the snow, and when it's cold, those pictures of cardinals that just stand out in the winter. And this one is by Deborah Stallings. What do you think, Richard?
Well, one thing that stands out to me, I've seen pictures like this. I've had some in my backyard that was similar to this. I love the plow and everything, but where's all the girls?
Oh my gosh, you're right. I didn't even notice. That's all males.
I think there's one over there somewhere, but maybe, mostly males.
Where are
And,
the girls?
They do show up a
don't
little
see
better,
them.
but yeah, there's not many females, if any at all, in that picture. But that'd be my first question. What happened to the girls?
Yeah, you would think with all those men around, you would
Yeah.
think that the girls would be there too.
Yeah.
That's interesting. And then we'll go to this one, Dory Deese, I think that's her name. I'm not sure. That is beautiful. The little pine warbler. Reminds you of goldfinch. They're so pretty.
Yes, and another one of those warblers that typically, the warblers as a species, as a group, tend to move out of here in the wintertime because they're mostly insect eaters, and we have very few insects in wintertime. But some of the warblers are able to cope and get by because they'll eat seeds and berries and things also. So this is one of them that stays around during the winter.
This one is so pretty. A Carolina wren shot by Michelle Bridgeforth, and we just so appreciate Michelle. She always sends us beautiful pictures.
And it's, of course, eating suet, a great food for the wintertime and summertime too.
Yeah, and then this is the white-breasted nuthatch. And I'll let you take a crack at this name there, Richard. Richard DeSellitz, do you think?
That sounds good.
Or Desolé, maybe?
Desolé.
That could be what it is.
And we apologize if we mispronounce that.
Yeah, and be sure to go ahead anytime you want to and ask your questions to Richard. He is the birding expert and can answer any of your questions. So feel free to write in the comments where you live, where you're watching from, and then if you have any questions, let us know. We'd love to hear your questions. I love this one. What do you think?
Feeding the young. Suet.
Is that the young? I thought it was the girlfriend, the wife.
No, that's young. That's a baby. There's no red at all on it.
Oh, okay. So if this was the wife or whatever, she would have on red.
Right.
She would have a little
The
red.
male has the red starting from the back of the bridge of the nose up over the head. The female only have it part of the way across the crown, and the
Okay.
juveniles have no color.
Oh,
After it
okay.
molts in the fall and gets its fresh coat of feathers, it'll have the male or female feathers.
Oh, okay. So not the kiss that I was thinking it is.
No,
It's just feeding.
no, it's passing some food.
Yeah.
The young wants the parents feeding the young from some of the suet it just pulled out of the feeder.
Yeah, that's a great picture.
Still a touching little picture.
It is,
Yeah.
absolutely. And then the
Yeah.
Eastern Bluebird with Jane Walker. Jane Walker is another one that is so wonderful and always sends us great pictures. We love her pictures and really appreciate her always taking part in our contest.
Bluebirds are also one of those birds that they're so photographic.
Oh, yeah.
The goldfinch, of course, the bluebird, both male and female are great looking birds, and everybody likes bluebirds.
You know, it used to be when I first started feeding the birds and seeing them, I enjoyed the males so much because of their vibrant color.
Yeah.
But I think both are just equally as
Yes.
beautiful now. Yeah, it's a great picture. And this one is cute. The Little Song Sparrow by Richard DeSelitz, I hope. If that's how you say it. That's a great picture.
Here again, I like the composition there also, the fence, the rustic fence and the tree behind it with the blooms coming out.
Yeah, that is
beautiful
pretty.
picture.
Yeah,
And,
that's a great
And a
one.
nice looking bird, handsome bird.
I love the sparrows.
Yeah.
I loved this. It looks like that doesn't look comfortable to me.
Or it's got an attitude. I
Yeah.
think,
Yeah.
it's like don't mess with me.
Yeah, that is a really cute one. This one is by Brittany Caffey, and you can certainly see when this one made it into the calendar.
Yeah. That's another bird we see down here.
All right,
in the
I'll
wintertime.
let you talk about this. You're the expert on these hummers.
That is a hummingbird, and that's a very big flower. And the hummingbird could be doing one of two things. If it's not, some flowers don't have nectar, it'll go to it, but there's insects in there. These birds actually live on insects. That's what they eat. That's how they grow, is where they get their protein. Now, the sugars have no protein, just simply energy. A Snickers bar.
Right.
Keeps them fueled in their high metabolism. So they'll go to nectar-producing flowers to get the nectar, which contains sugar, and they'll go around in the air a lot, just hawking insects, just popping them out of the air, or they'll pick up spiders and things off of flowers and plants.
Ah, so that one is probably eating bugs.
Probably
in
eating
this
bugs,
picture.
yes.
Yeah, that's a beautiful picture though. And this one's another one by Jane Walker. This is so beautiful. I love the different colors in this one and the vibrancy of this.
And of course, the cardinal is the other very photogenic bird, isn't it? The male cardinal.
it certainly is.
Always
And
nice in a picture.
if you're watching right now, feel free to put, where you're watching from, or if any of our photographers who are winning, if you're watching right now, let us know about it. Go ahead and comment and let us know that you're watching, or if you want to congratulate one of our winners, feel free to do that. So, and also maybe to share this out so that those photographers can get a little bit more publicity for their beautiful work. And so we'll go to the next one, the rose-breasted grosbeak.
Grosbeak.
Okay, and this is by Michelle Bridgeforth, who has so many beautiful pictures in this.
And that's one of my favorite birds.
Is it?
That was one of the birds when I first started bird watching.
Yeah?
And I got drug out of the house at some ungodly hour in the morning to go on a bird walk.
Yeah.
And one of the first birds I saw was that. I'd never seen one before.
Yeah, they're
And-
very striking.
Yes, and I didn't know what it was. And I was informed very quickly by the other people who knew what they were doing what it was. And it's like, that was it. I was hooked. That bird right there did it.
This picture almost looks like a reflection.
It does, doesn't it?
Because you see the other side. But so you tell me, are we looking at a male and female or two males here?
Males.
Oh, okay.
Males.
And you see how they behave just a little bit differently at the feeders when it's, male, female versus that. And that's got to be coals in there. Those sunflower seeds
I'm
look
sure.
great.
They look nice. They have to be coals, yeah.
Woodhouse's Scrub, and the photo by Jessica Kemper. This is beautiful. And I love the blue background, the blue sky against its blue head. That is beautiful.
That's a nice bird.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And of course, you just can't beat cardinals and goldfinches together.
Right.
I love that in the background of the snow.
Yeah.
Another one by Michelle Bridgeforth. Michelle, thank you.
Yes.
And love this one. Those blue jays that so many people don't like, but they are gorgeous.
Yeah, I think it's just the behavior they don't like.
Yeah.
They're a little pesky sometimes, but they're loud. But they're sure that's a good looking bird, and that's
It's
of
a
course one of the
beautiful
birds that you
bird,
can't tell the difference
yeah.
between male and female. They both
Yeah.
look the same.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh, I thought maybe they were more muted or just,
No, they look
female.
the same. Males and females look identical.
That's
I'm sure there might be
interesting.
some subtle, teeny little differences, but I don't know what they are.
Yeah.
I look at them, it's either a male or a female.
Well, and you've said some interesting things about blue jays to me that they will sound the alarm for other
It's
birds.
an
Like
alarm
so
bird,
many
yes.
people don't like to see blue jays at their feeders, but because they can be aggressive, but
Yes.
they can also be really helpful.
They can be. They're always on the lookout, and they're loud, and they'll make a noise if a predator starts coming in.
Yeah. So we do have a few comments. We had Mary Melton saying hello, and she's watching from Connecticut. That's great.
Well, hi there.
And Coles is saying, what else, Scrub Jay? Okay, so that's all of the pictures that we have to show you, but please go ahead, and we're so glad that you're watching from Connecticut. That's great. And please go ahead and make your comments and ask Richard questions. He is here as the expert to answer all your questions. But let's go ahead and talk about the hummers and what to expect.
Yeah. Traditionally, this time of year, everybody with a bird store is in contact with people who feed and track the birds. I always get the question, where are my hummingbirds? I had a lot of them this time last year, but I don't have very many this year. We went through that same thing in the spring when they're not here yet and haven't started nesting. We go through it even more so this time of year. People remember the rush of hummingbirds they had last year. It's just not time yet.
Wow, you're right. And it seems like we had more this time last year,
Yes.
but maybe we're just not remembering it, right?
Exactly. If you write it down and week by week and what's going on, it's pretty close to the same every year within a few days or a week, maybe week and a half. And they're just now getting all finishing up their last broods. The birds way up north, maybe in Canada and up in the northern states, and from here, Tennessee even's north of here. So all these birds are finishing up. The further north, the quicker they finish up and start heading south. The males will move out first. Their job is over. They start heading south first. So you'll see as we get into the period where there's a lot of birds moving south, you'll see a rush of males. So all of a sudden you're mixed out there instead of one male and 3 or 4 females, which are females and immatures really look the same. Now you're going to see like 4 males and 1 female looking bird because a lot more males have moved down through here, head south. That will pick up as we get through August. The further we get into August, the more birds you're going to see. Mid-August and mid-September is the rush. You'll see your big hordes of birds in. So it's almost time, but not quite. Be a little patient. They're coming. They're on their way.
And while we're talking about hummingbirds, let's talk about what to feed them and what not to feed them.
That's a big subject sometimes. It's you can talk a long time about that. The basics of hummingbirds are when they're feeding for sugar, they hit the plants that produce nectar. Nectar is, I think it's about 23% sugar mixture. There's several types of sugar involved in the plants. Table sugar works very well. It's one of the sugars that they eat naturally. So you just mix that with water. 4 parts water, 1 part sugar gives you the approximate strength of sugar in the mix. The problem some people have is they think that that's not good enough. They want to do something extra. So they'll do things. In fact, we were talking earlier that we've had some people talk about putting the artificial sugars in that because they don't want the hummingbirds to have so much sugar. And you can't do that. That's what they need. They need the sugars, and that's how they thrive. That's their energy to get them where they want to go. And
They are not on a
put
diet.
weight.
Right.
Yeah. And so you should never substitute artificial sweeteners for the sugar. We've also had some people have problems with squirrels or raccoons getting to the hummingbird feeders. And so they're naturally thinking they need to put some hot sauce or something on it, one of the Coles products, put that on there, flaming squirrel seed sauce. Can they put that in there? Thank goodness they asked. Because, of course, we said, no, it's an oil, it's hot, the bird may or may not be able to taste it, doesn't matter, but you're adulterating the sugar mix. You never want to put anything else in there. No Coca-Cola, no saccharin, artificial sweeteners, just sugar and water.
And I've heard don't even put the red dye. Don't buy the ones with the red dye.
2 reasons. One, these birds consume a lot of this fluid, and the red dye, where we're getting it, it's going to be much more concentrated there because they're taking in so much fluid for their size. And it may not be good for them. So why take the chance? Just leave it out. The reason you put it in there is because, oh, they're attracted to red. Well, the feeders that you're using probably has red on it. I don't think I've seen one that didn't have red on it. And so it's got plenty of red. You don't need to add that to your food.
Right.
One less thing you have to worry about. And
Right.
a lot of the artificial, commercial mixes out there, put that in there because people expect it. And it's really not necessary. So if you want to do yours at home, it's that the formula's on your hand all the time. It's 4 parts water, 1 part sugar.
Yes.
It's really easy.
And you don't want to mix that up because if it's too sugary, it's not good for them. If
Yeah.
it's too watery, it's also not good for them.
Yeah.
And I have heard just stick right
And
with
that's-
that 4 to 1.
That's just a good way to do it, 4 to 1. If it's off a teeny bitty way, it doesn't matter. It's fine.
Right.
And you don't have to boil and do all this fancy stuff. People have gone through these great strides to try to boil this thing, make it sanitary and everything. Then you put it in an unsanitary feeder and hang it outside. With bugs come into it. It doesn't matter. The birds can handle that. You know,
Okay.
as long as it's fresh sugar and you take it and put it warm tap water. It's all you need. It's so
Really?
easy.
I always boil mine. I thought you had to boil
Nope.
the chlorine out of it or something.
No, it's fine. It's
Yeah.
fine. That'll dissipate. But just put the sugar in there and the water, stir it up. Warm tap water is great. Stir it until it's dissolved.
Yeah.
Pour it. You can even refrigerate it,
Yeah.
so it makes it easier to add later.
And now that it is so hot, though, you do have to change that pretty often, right?
Yes, you do. The hotter it gets, the more frequent you change it. I tend to look at it at least every day. And if it shows any cloudiness, I go ahead and change it.
Okay.
And it's a lot easier when you do that, too, because the feeder's not all messed up with fungus or you see black mold forming there. You have to get that out. You have to bleach it and make sure it's good and clean. But if you're cleaning it every 2 days or so in the hot summertime, you probably won't have the mold problem anyhow.
Yeah.
And just change it frequently. If you keep some in the refrigerator, make a big picture of it, just go out there and pour it in there. It's so easy and so quick. It's not a big chore.
Right.
And you
it's
keep
not.
it fresh. But if you ever see cloudiness in there or black specks
Yeah.
on the walls in there,
Get
it's
it
time to
clean.
clean.
Yeah. And we invite you to ask all of your birding questions. Richard Cole, the founder of Coles, is here. There's really nothing you can ask that he can't answer. So please go ahead in
Okay.
our comment section and ask your questions. In the meantime, let's talk about nesting season and how bluebirds are still at it, right?
Yeah, nesting season, late March, they're really into it. And April's a big month for it. And May, you see baby birds everywhere. They're starting to come out, and especially in May. And they're all in the nest boxes, and the bluebirds are too. Most of them are one time. Some of them maybe twice. I think the doves tend to try to mate as often as they can during the warm season. But a lot of the birds, it's one and done. They get their young out there, and that's it. Bluebirds will nest as often as they can. 2 times is normal for them. 3 times happens, sometimes 4. Depends
Wow.
how early of a start they get, how quickly they pull off their broods. They will nest as often as they can.
So keep the nesting box clean, right?
Yep. So and the reason you want to clean it is because there's parasites that get in the nest, and there's like fleas or something. But they'll be in there, and you just get the old nesting material out, hose it out, blow it out, let it dry, shut the box back up. They've got about 2 weeks between those cycles, 2.5 weeks. The brood leaves, in about 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks, they're back in there building another nest. And don't worry about throwing their old nest away. They're really good at building a nest quickly. And they'll start a fresh nest without insects in there. And
Yeah.
they'll go again. And they may be on the nest right now, bluebirds. And that's one of the fun things about them. They will pull off 2 to 3 broods a year. And we've had reports of 4. They get an early start, get them in and out quickly, nothing happens. They might be doing 1 all the way down into September.
They are working all the
Yes.
time. Those are the most industrious birds.
Yes.
And it's such a pleasure to have them. And one of the ways that you can attract bluebirds is by you can have the mealworms, right?
Yes.
And the other way is what is the type of food that you put out if you really want them, other than, they eat the seeds, right? The sunflower meats?
Yes, sunflower meats is a big favorite of them. You can do suet, the suet kibbles, the little pelletized suet. They love that.
Okay.
And in a tray, they can come right to it. Mealworms, we use at Coles, we package the dried mealworms so that they're not crawling all over the place, and they're dry, so you get the proteins and all in there. and the birds love them. They'll
Right.
feed them to their young. They're coming to it constantly. And I like to personally take one of the bountiful bowls, and I put some dried mealworms in on one side, and I put the suet kibbles on the other side. And they go about equal.
Really?
Yeah, and they'll come and get whichever one they want at the time to go feed their young, especially feeding their young with it, because they
Yeah.
eat their share too.
And you talk about how the suet, it goes so fast this time of year because a lot of birds use the suet, right,
Yes,
to
and
feed their young.
we saw one of the calendar pictures showing that.
Yeah.
The parents said, hey, it's a great food source. It's easy for the birds to get, and the parents can come right up there, grab it, turn right around, and feed it to their
Mm-hmm.
young. So put your suet cakes into a wire basket or some other
Mm-hmm.
suet feeder like that, and you can, I even take the suet cakes, just cut them up in little squares like brownies. And
Yeah?
I have a big log,
Uh-huh.
about this big around, and it's about yay tall.
Yeah.
And I drilled holes in it. I used the bit I
Yeah.
drew for birdhouse holes, 1.5 inches, so, and about an inch or so deep. And I just take the suet squares and just push them in there.
Yeah.
You can do anything like that.
Yeah.
You can lay it sideways or hang it, and just push some suet into it. The birds will find it, and it's like they're on a limb eating this soft stuff. They're happy.
And you, after all these years, you know how to make the birds happy.
yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about migration. Why some birds migrate, some don't, right?
Yeah, it's interesting. We think about, oh, it's migration time, the birds are out here. Well, not all of them, because we have birds year-round. Why is a blue jay here all the time? And some birds are gone. We tend to think more of the birds that are here all the time because we see them all the time. And a lot of the birds that don't come to feeders, a lot of the warblers and all, are not here. They leave, and that's the bulk of the migration. And the reason it's the bulk of the migration because that type of bird tends to survive mostly on insects. And we don't have many insects in the wintertime. There are some, but not many. The birds that are halfway insect and halfway seed eaters, they'll stay around. So you'll see, like we had on the calendar pictures, there was a warbler. And it's here all winter, but it eats both. It goes
Right.
both ways. But the birds that survive mostly on insects move down south. And it gets, where do they go? And the hummingbirds, the same thing. Some of them can survive here. Mostly the ones that survive here are western hummingbirds that migrate to here in the wintertime. So we have some hummingbirds in the southeast in the winter. And they survive, especially if there's a feed around. There's some insects they can grab. But the rest of them are down across the Gulf of Mexico into Central America. They'll stay down there where it's warm and cozy. They love the beach. I'm just kidding about the beach. And but there's insects down there. Then they'll come back for the breeding season. This is their home. This is where they breed.
Right.
And then they go down there just to spend the harsh winters. But you have a lot of birds stay here all the time, and a lot of birds are out here. Like I said, mostly the warblers that you don't pay as much attention to. It's a great time to see them. Keep your eyes open because there are a lot of them from up north and moving through here to go down to basically Central America, northern South America, Mexico. And that's where our hummingbirds are going. It's like, oh, they get out of here. They catch the first flight from Atlanta down to Cancun.
Don't they wish?
Yeah.
That's
yeah.
quite a journey.
It is quite a journey, and it's actually a marvel to see these little bitty birds that are really no bigger than that and a tenth the weight. And they come from maybe Chicago, maybe southern Canada, all the way down through the States, all the way down to the Gulf shores, across the water in a nonstop flight to get to Central America where they're going to spend the winter.
Yeah, and we were talking earlier about how difficult that journey is, that the Hummers have to fly all the way over the Gulf
Yeah.
of Mexico, and there's no break, there's no stopping, and you were telling me how fast they fly.
Yeah, and they're quick little birds. If you see them zipping around through your yard, you got to realize they can move over 20 miles an hour. That's fairly quick. They also have the ability to store a lot of weight, and that's why you see it in the time of year we're approaching now. They just seem to congregate around the feeders. They're feeding all the time, and they have to. They have to gain weight if their fuel tanks are trying to fill up. So they're eating their insects that you don't see much of, but they're using the sugar to fatten up so that they'll have enough weight to burn off on that one flight to get down down to the winter grounds.
And you mentioned, I said, there's no resting. There's nowhere
No.
to stop. They have to continuously fly throughout that thing. And you said there's been reports of them stopping on boats.
Yeah, yeah. Because to them, it's fly or die. And they have no choice.
Yeah.
And the amazing thing is they can do it. They think that they're such delicate little things. No, they're tough, and they'll pick up a bird getting ready to migrate down toward the Gulf. By the time they reach down there, they'll be pushing 5 grams of weight. That's a dinky little thing, but 5 grams. By the time they get on the other side of the Gulf and they cut across to where they're going, they'll lost close to half of that weight.
Yeah.
And they burned it in the day or slightly over a day it takes to get there nonstop.
Yeah. That's just one of the most amazing thing I think in
Yeah.
nature is that migration of the hummingbirds. And do you put out extra feeders at this time of year, or do you just keep the same number
Oh, I
of feeders?
think they would knock my door down if I didn't do that.
You do, huh?
They're used to coming by now, so I expect them, and I'm used to having them. They would survive if I didn't, but I put out more and more feeders. I've been known to put out 10 or 15 feeders. Some people put out a lot more feeders than that, and a lot bigger feeders if they have more birds. I have a moderate amount of birds, and I do my counts every year, and it's like writing down when they're coming and when they're going. Write down how many you have. This week I had this many, or today I saw 5. Or I saw 5 plus. I saw 2. And then every year I can see, oh, here's where it starts building up.
Yeah.
Here's where it's a lot. And on a really good day, I might be able to count maybe quickly 20 or so and know there's 4, 5, or 6 or 7 I didn't get counted.
Yeah.
And if you take that and multiply it by maybe 5 times, that's about how many's in the immediate area coming in and out to your feeders.
Wow.
You just don't see all of them at the feeders at one time.
What about, I know you ban hummingbirds. Have you ever see one coming back that you've banned before?
Yes, the people who have the license to ban, and they have banned it at my house. I have not seen one back, but sometimes it's hard to see the little band where the banders, there's a place close by where they band every year, and at Smith Gilbert Gardens, and they do a little show and put it on and catch the birds there, and they've had some repeats. And they get repeats off and on in different locations. That's why they ban. So once you get a bird that's been banded, you know where it used to be, where it is now. You start learning timing, and you start learning direction, and it adds to the knowledge about hummingbirds.
Okay, so we have a comment that came in, and if you see me look down, that's what I'm doing. I'm looking down at the comments that we've got. So Colleen Mulholtz, I think that's her name, and I need my far side glasses. Amazing. We have been seeing increased activity from our hummingbirds in the last several days. Lots of chasing and darting too. Yeah, the more that we get into the season, right, the more you're going to see of them getting territorial, right? Or maybe less territorial because they can. Like you always said, after a while they're going to cooperate, right?
Yeah, it depends on what's going on. If you're in an area where you don't have a lot of hummingbirds and there's a lot of food, you'll see a lot of fighting. They can afford to waste the energy to fight. If food's scarce and there's a lot of birds, they'll stop the fighting and share. I tell the story. I was up in the mountains one time north of here, and it was cold, and they were in full migration. And there was a couple of feeders out. They were literally on each other's backs, 2 or 3 trying to get their beaks in the hole at the same time.
I'd love to see that.
And because they had to.
And nobody's fighting, right?
Nobody's fighting. They couldn't afford to fight. They were just trying to get to the food.
Yeah.
And but around my house, typically there's a little bit of fighting as it gets toward the peak when there's maybe 10 or 15 birds at a time coming in.
Yeah.
They'll play at fighting, and then they'll just eat. They'll sit down and share feeders and eat. But the more the birds and the more they need to eat, the less they'll fight.
Yeah, that's interesting. So, Colleen, you'll have to keep track of that. And we always say we have a humming pig, one that tries to guard all the feeders and everything. We need to wrap things up. I'm just checking to see if there's any new comments, and I don't see any new comments. But just keep in mind that we are here every first Wednesday of the month at 3 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, that Richard's here to answer all your birding questions. So if you put a question down anytime on Facebook, then we'll get to it during this broadcast.
Yes, we'll do our best.
Thank you so much, Richard, and we'll see you next time. And congratulations to all of our photographers that made it into our Coles calendar.
And thank you.